All right, welcome back, friends. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite CAD resources out there, which is Tinkercad. It's completely free, it's web-based, it's suitable for anyone of all ages, and the best part is if you're into 3D printing, this is an easy software to use to be able to make models that you then can export and 3D print. The reason this video is so important to me is this was the first CAD software that I had put my hands on, and it helped me come up with some really cool designs that I needed for college. To this day, I still recommend it for any user with any background. So if you want the complete rundown of this absolutely free tool, stick around and we'll jump right into that with this video. So just to kind of get a lay of the land with how I want to break this video up, it's got three main parts. The first one is what even is CAD if you're not familiar with it and why use it. I think this is a really important first stop for anybody to understand why they would actually jump into this application. Step two is going to be understanding the user interface. We're going to go through what it's like to open an account and then get familiar with the workspace and the tools that they have associated with coming up with 3D designs. And then the third aspect of this video is we're gonna make something. I did this with one of my previous Fusion videos and it seemed to get some pretty good reception with users and viewers that were wanting to get started with using a different CAD package. So I'm gonna do that today. We're gonna come up with a completely new design together. And I feel like that's a really easy way to see the tools in action and then apply them for yourself with your own designs. All right, again, starting off really basic here, what is CAD and why use it? So if you're not familiar, CAD stands for computer-aided design. You may have seen that term thrown around anytime you're looking into 3D printing and want to make your own models, or maybe you're an engineer of any type or an architect or someone related to a field where stuff gets built, and you've maybe heard this brought up before. To put it simply, CAD is just a tool that allows you to bring ideas to life digitally. So it's that halfway point between, I have this idea and then boom, there it is, fabricated and made in the real world. It's very critical, again, for me in my everyday job as an engineer, but plenty of people use it. Graphic designers sometimes want to bring concepts to life. Architects like to use it for whatever they're designing. Again, this is used across the board for many different industries and is such a good tool for anybody to pick up. So now that we got that out of the way, what is Tinkercad and why use that? I got started using this tool, so I want to say it's not a bias that I have just because it was the first tool that I ever used. I actually played around with a lot of different free CAD packages. I still continue to try and investigate them now. The reason I like it so much is, again, number one, it's free to anyone to use. All you need to have is an internet connection to hop on the web and use it since it's a web-based platform. Some other key aspects of it is that it's part of Autodesk. It's kind of an entry-level way to jump into a lot of their other products. If you're not familiar with Autodesk, they own AutoCAD, they have Fusion 360, they have Inventor, I think they have Revit, they have a lot of CAD packages for different applications. So to me, if you're thinking about maybe going to one of those products or it's just something that you're already kind of familiar with, a lot of the user interface is going to be very similar. So it's kind of a big win. And then the last piece, I think it's great for all ages. When you first get into the user interface, you're gonna think, okay, this seems tailored for kids, but I'm gonna try it out anyway. Yes, it's great for kids, but it's also great for adults. And I'll go through that here later. When I started using it, I was 23 years old and I absolutely loved it because it's very intuitive to get started with, but you can make some very robust stuff using that platform. Before you immediately jump away from it, at least investigate it a little bit and try it. Again, it's free, there's no penalty, and you just use it on your web browser. I think it's great for that reason as well, that anyone from any background can sort of hop on it and begin using it from day one without a lot of previous experience. So now that we've gotten past the basics of understanding like what is CAD, what is Tinkercad, why am I using this, why am I thinking about it, hopefully you're sold on the idea of at least going to try it out. I want to put this out there like I do with a lot of other videos. I'm not affiliated to this product whatsoever. The company does not know that I'm making this silly video trying to get people to use it. There's no kickback for me. There's no backdoor, sponsorship deal or something silly like that. This is a pure opinion. This is something that I just want to relay to people because I feel like it's important to enable others to start designing their own stuff. Maybe someday you're looking at engineering, maybe you're looking at architecting, maybe you just like designing stuff. I really feel like this is such an easy tool to jump on and start using to figure out if you even want to do that. Maybe you try this out a little bit and you're like, wow, CAD modeling is not super fun and that's not something I'm into. Or B, you do like it and you're like, okay, this makes me feel more confident. I want to progress in this field, if I want to use it for my job or just for my personal life. This is a nice stepping stone to kind of catapult you into a different CAD package if you want to get something that's a lot more refined, or just stick with this one because I really think that it's got some longevity to it and allows you to make great stuff. I want to segue over into actually walking through the user interface. I'm going to kind of transition from the camera and make this more of a follow me on the screen sort of thing. You don't have to, but it'll just be easier for me to sort of walk through this without my face blabbing at you and just go straight to the web page and show you how to use this stuff. All right, so the first thing that you're gonna wanna do is jump into your web browser of choice, and you're gonna wanna go to tinkercad.com. I'll provide a link to that in my description just in case you need an easy jump to get to the website. Now that we're in here, you're gonna wanna sign up for an account if you don't already have one, and that's up here in the top right corner for sign up. But it's just like signing up for pretty much anything else that you get into on the web. You just need a reliable email address, create an account with a password, and then you're good to go. Okay, now here we are on the main dashboard, and right away you'll notice you have a couple of things that might jump out at you. For me, I've already got some designs made, so I have this 3D design panel with a bunch in my backlog. Yours will not look like this if you're just signing up for it. It'll probably be blank. Circuits, code blocks, I'm not going to get into those, but those are some other cool features that you can use in Tinkercad. Actually, comment below if you want me to go through how to use like the circuits and the code blocks in Tinkercad. I'd be more than happy to make a quick like beginner tutorial on how to use those. It's really cool if you are interested in anything related to like Arduino boards. You can essentially take a Arduino Uno or a bunch of different boards that they have pre-populated in there and pull them into like a little environment to make stuff, and then code it using code blocks on the back end to test out like an idea that you have before you bring it to real life. So total segue. Jumping back to this, the user interface, on the left-hand side, you have home, classes, designs, collections, tutorials, challenges. Classes is if you are in high school or college, I think you can have a professor kind of make a class channel essentially where you can collaborate on stuff. Designs, it shows everything that you have. Collections are actually really nice. So for me, you see two here which say Rover. If you want to make some project folders essentially where you can take some of your specific 3D designs and sort of bucket them somewhere, this is a really useful tool, so definitely keep this in mind. Tutorials, this is actually just showing the ones that I have done in the past. There's a whole library that I'm also going to link down below in the description. Like I've said with other tutorials that I've done before, I feel like it's super important to kind of watch my video first and then to go deeper by going to a set of tutorials that I recommend. And this site actually has some really good ones that are very straightforward and very native to the platform already. And then challenges, something really cool about Autodesk is that it's big on community. So once you sign up, you'll notice that there is a lot here to be offered in terms of like collaborating with other creators or being able to see different projects from other folks. So I don't want to go too deep on this one, but this is another fun tool. Say if you have like kids or just for you, if you want to do something to kind of challenge yourself, there's some cool stuff in here that you can look up as well. From the homepage, the thing that we care about today is creating a new design. So we'll jump right into that here with the create button. Click create 3D design, and it will load a build plane for you that we're going to be using here. Right out the gate, I want to point out a couple things that are of some decent importance here. One, every time you make a new design in Tinkercad, it likes to populate its own silly name for you. My recommendation, first thing you should do, this is just like saving any document, is go up there and change that name to something that you actually are going to remember what it is. Up here in the top left in the main window, you have this block that says top front. This is how you can navigate the plane. It's one of a couple ways. I'll show you more, but you can click on this. So left mouse click and sort of spin it around and see your work plane in different directions. Or if you just want like nice jumps to navigation points on the cube, you can go top, front, there's right, left, bottom. Pretty standard on a lot of CAD designing platforms, especially Autodesk. Autodesk loves using these little cubes. The next thing that you'll see is all these different tools over here. So there's a home view. Home view will take you to just like a nice overall view of the work plane, sort of based on approximately the center of the work plane. This fit all in view when you have something that's starting to expand, maybe going over the work plane, it'll get it so that everything is in view. You kind of have like a nice like, you know, reference from far back. That way you're not missing things by hitting the home button if it's like way off in the distance. Plus and minus, that's just zoom in and out. And then switch to flat orthographic. That's just making it so you have like a permanent top-down view, essentially. Not my favorite. I'm a huge fan of the perspective view. That's how I use most of my CAD platforms. So I wouldn't change that if I was you, but feel free to experiment if you want to. Over here on the right-hand side, you see we have a lot of different pieces sort of populated here, and you might be wondering, okay, what is that? We're getting into the crux of what makes Tinkercad very unique. If you're not familiar with other CAD platforms, the typical process is start with a sketch, define that sketch with like the, you know, length and height and stuff like that. And I have other videos that goes into that in a lot more detail. You usually are defining a lot of the features as you go very specifically. What's cool about Tinkercad is this is more beginner friendly in that way, where you're taking a bunch of parts and you're using what are called Boolean Boolean operators to join or subtract these parts from each other. So using them kind of as sculpting tools and molding tools while you're putting it together. This will make a lot more sense as we start working through this actual demo that I'm going to kind of throw together, but just to kind of be aware of why it's set up like this, that is the thing that makes this such a benefit to anybody that doesn't have a ton of background with CAD modeling, is you really can just jump into using parts here and throw them on the build plane and kind of smash them all together. Some things of note up here in the top, you have the work plane tool. So right now we have a work plane. If you want to make another one on top of a feature, that's getting a little more advanced for kind of what I want to talk about. But if you want to make another work plane on different features, you can with that. You have the ruler tool. So as you can tell, there's not very intuitive units of measure on here. It does say that our snap grid is right now set to 1 millimeter down here. But if you want to set up another spot to get some better measurements, you can throw this thing down anywhere and then put a part inside of it and get not only the size of the part, but it also show you the distance from this little circle piece, which is called your origin. Pretty high level here, not super important just yet, but I'm just kind of throwing it on there just so you see what it is without having to guess. Last one is your notes tool. So if you want to kind of throw a note on there, if you're collaborating or just something to keep in mind for later, you have this at your disposal as well. Again, that was really brief. Don't read too far into all those things. That's just a general overview. You can come back to that if you want to just be like, okay, what was that? I don't remember that. I don't understand this. This is the part that I think is going to be helpful, is we're going to step by step kind of go through using a couple basic shapes and operators to make something. In my mind, I thought it would be cool to kind of just make like a little rocket, and that'll give you a good idea of just using a lot of the basic tools and functionality with Tinkercad to get you going. First thing we want to do for my rocket is we have our center propellant tank, or we'll call it the tube that goes up the middle of the rocket. So for me, I'm just going to come up here and I want to use a cylinder to make that tank. So I'll bring it out here in the center. So I clicked on that tank, bring it out here, and I click again to drop it on the work plane. So now that we have a piece in the plane, I'm going to start going over some hotkeys too that are going to be really useful for you. I was saving that for this piece of the video just because it's going to be intuitively worked through as I go, which for anyone that likes hotkeys, which you should, please like hotkeys. This will make your designing so much faster in Tinkercad. It doesn't matter who you are. Get used to using at least a couple of these at first because it will make things go so much faster. Here is an all-up view of a lot of those keyboard shortcuts. You kind of have this as like a nice reminder. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the link to where I got this PDF from Autodesk in the description and kind of float it here below as well. This will be something that you can use to have a nice reminder of how to do a lot of these operations that I'm about to do. But don't worry, I'll keep them in the corner of the window just so you know what I'm clicking on when I'm doing it. Last piece here for Mac users, up here, anywhere you see Control, that is the equivalent of Command, and anywhere you see Alt, that's the equivalent of Option on your keyboard. Just a heads up. Back to our work plane. Something that's going to be really important is how you navigate around the plane and look at your part. So the first thing you want to test out is your zooming. So that's just your middle scroll wheel. You can scroll forward to zoom in, scroll back to zoom out. Very intuitive. Another thing that I like about Tinkercad is how to move the build plane around. So right click or right mouse click and move your mouse around to sort of pan around the part that is in question. Your left mouse click is going to be saved for doing things like dragging over certain parts and areas and stuff like that. If you click on your scroll wheel too, you can shift the build plane back and forth, kind of scoot it like I've said in previous videos. And those are the three keys that you really need to be able to navigate, is scrolling in and out for zoom, right mouse clicking to sort of pan around it, and then middle mouse wheel clicking to scoot back and forth and drag the plane around. With this part that I just threw on the plane, we'll click it again, and you notice right away there's a bunch of different little features that are now popping up around it. The first one I want to go over is these little white blocks. So these white blocks are how you can uniformly scale certain parts of it. So this top white block here has a measurement next to it. So you can adjust your part sizes one of two ways. You can drag them up and down in these different directions. And then on the sides, you've got these little black ones that you can also move back and forth. Now, say you move something out and you want to undo it. It's the same as most undo operations, just Control Z or Command Z if you're on your Apple, or click on the feature that you're wanting to size and you can make it specific. So if I want it 25 millimeters, set it to 25 millimeters. This is also a good time to point to measurements. So I did bring up the snap grid down here, but you can go to settings and change your measurement units to whatever you want. You can also change the size of the build plane if you want to, if you're finding that whatever you're making is too big for it, you want to scale it up, or maybe it's too big and you want to scale it down. But that's all down here in the settings. That's how you can adjust your sizes. Again, another way to do that is clicking here on one of these little black boxes on the base, and you can see when it's a dimension because it'll pop up that you can click inside of and change to. Another way that you can do this, say proportionally you like the size of something. So for me, say it's this big and I proportionally like the size of it, meaning I like the length and width and the height. I just wish the whole thing was bigger uniformly. To do that, click on the part and you'll hold down Shift and left mouse click on one of these corner white boxes and pull out to scale up or push in to scale it down. Okay, that's a really important tool that you'll probably use a lot. So highly recommend remembering that. Another cool thing here is you'll see this black kind of little cone up at the top. That's different from all the other ones in the sense that it's actually meant for moving the piece. So right now the bottom of your piece is on the work plane, and say I want to move that up a little bit. You'll grab that little cone, left mouse click it, and you can drag up or you can drag down and set it at whatever height off the build plane you want to. And again, you could also define it if you want as well. Multiple ways to do that. Cool hotkey here. Say you did that on accident. You don't actually want it off the build plane. You want it back on the build plane. And click on your part again and then just hit D and it'll put it back on the build plane wherever it's at. So it'll go just straight back down to the work plane. Okay, so the last important feature we care about here is this little curved arrow thing on the back side of the part. So there's 3 different ways you can manipulate using these. So say you want to take this part and rotate it about one of the 3 axes that you have on this plane. There's 1, 2, 3. You select, click, left mouse click the arrows, and then you can come up to this top white plane where you can do it in 1 degree increments, or you can jump down to this middle circle and you can do it in increments of 22.5. Say if you want to get a nice clean 90-degree breakover, or the last way with a hotkey is holding down Shift. Then you can do it in 45-degree increments, which I found really helpful because you typically want to do it in one of those 45 or 90-degree increments. So here we are. It's our initial piece. And the first thing we're going to do, set this up roughly somewhere on the build plane that we want to start at. And I'm going to extend this tube to make my prop tank area. The next thing I want to do is add a little piece to the top. So what I'm going to do, this is a really cool feature now with Tinkercad where you can cruise your parts together. So what you do is you click and hold, left mouse click and hold, and drag it out here, and see how it's kind of adapting to surfaces as I drag it. This is really nice so that you can pick the exact plane that you want to place this on. And for me, that'll be up here on top. So I'm going to place this and I'm going to leave it a little bit off-centered. One problem you're going to have a lot when you're putting parts together is that it'll look like they're lined up in one direction. So, you know, maybe I'll scoot this over and be like, okay, that's perfect, right? Or, you know, that looks perfect from this perspective ish, right? You're like, great, it's together. Well, then you pan around, you're like, oh no, they're not. This is where the align tool comes in. Of all the tools that you can use, using your align tools is going to help you with all of your designs, and it'll save you these countless hours of like rotating over, scooting it, then you rotate back, and it's still not quite perfect, right? You're gonna just fidget with it until you think you have it in the right spot, and it's never gonna quite be there. So in order to avoid all that pain, you're gonna get used to using your align tool. So what you can do is drag over both of your parts to select both of them, or you can click one, hold down Shift and click on the other to select both of them. There's 2 ways to do this. The one way is come up here and you'll see this line next to these 2 little blocks and it says align. You can click on that, or you can hit the L hotkey for align, and these little toggles will pop up next to your parts. In order to get these perfectly aligned, you will want to use this one to get it aligned down the center on this plane, and then this one to get it aligned in the center along this plane. So we will do that. We will click this, which has them aligned in that plane, and this to get them aligned in that plane. And now you're perfectly aligned across the board. Now, you'll notice there's one more plane, and that's in your Z-axis, which if we wanted to get 2 parts perfectly aligned in all 3 directions, you would hit that. But when I do that, you'll notice that puts my part right in the middle of the booster tank, and I don't want that. I just wanted the other 2 directions. So Control Z, put it back on top. Something else you notice now that we have these 2 things aligned is that the dimension of this is 20 by 20, and the dimension of this is 18 by 18.9. So I do want to clean that up so that we have these the same width. We'll go 20, go 20. Okay. Now these will be the same diameter as the nose cone on top. And if you'll notice, I'm not in alignment anymore. So what I'll do, drag over the 2, hit L, and I'll realign them again with the align tool. So much faster than trying to do this manually and drag them all together. So please, please, please utilize those tools. All right, now the last thing I want to do is add some little fins on the bottom. So I'm going to use a little triangle. And what I want to do is get one of these flat planes on the work plane so that I have like a nice 90-degree triangle that I can turn into a fin. So I'm going to rotate this, and I'm going to go up to this inner circle so I can get some nice 45-degree increments. We'll set it there, and I'm going to select it and hit D to put it on the build plane. And then I want to shrink this. So I'm going to go down to about 2, and we'll bring the height up to about 22. Something else I want to do, I want to change this to white to kind of match the color of the piece on top. I want to kind of set this here, but I want to sort of align it on center with these pieces as well. One of two ways you can do this. And what I'm going to do is just go ahead and introduce the grouping tool. There's multiple ways to group these, but here's how I'm going to group it for this tutorial. I'm going to group these two pieces together first to make it one solid unit. Okay, so what that means is now that I've grouped these, I can't individually select the two pieces that went together. Tinkercad now thinks of this as one solid unit. The one thing you might notice too is that they both turned into the same color, which for visualization purposes is a little silly because maybe I wanted to see that distinction of like the orange prop tank and then the white nose fairing on top. In order to change it back to having multicolor, they're grouped as a singular body. You can click on solid and then click on multicolor, and it will maintain the parent color designations that you had on both of the parts before you group them together. The reason I did this is now, if I want to center this on this, I can just select the two, click on my align tool and go boom. Now I am perfectly centered along the booster tank. And here's another cool thing you can do. So far, we've just been clicking and dragging parts into place. But if you want to do this more precisely and incrementally without losing like my center at this point, I can just hit the right arrow key and move over in increments of 1 unit on the snap grid till I get it to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm pretty much happy with that. And so what I'm going to do now is replicate this all the way around the booster. To do that, I'm going to come up here and duplicate the part. So there's one of two ways to do that. One, clicking on duplicate up here with these little squares, or you can hit Control D. When you do this, you might look at it and be like, nothing happened. Well, it actually just duplicated a part exactly over the top of the part that you duplicated from. So there is currently 2 parts here. And to show that, I'll drag this over so you can see there actually are 2 parts. I'm going to do Control Z to put it back where it was. And what I want to do now is mirror this part to be the exact same, but I want it going in the opposite direction so I can scoot it over on this side. I'm going to click on mirror. You click that, it's going to give you options for which plane you want to mirror it in. And what's cool is when you hover it over the arrows, it will tell you which way you're mirroring in. And this is the direction that I want to do. So I'll click that. And now I can use my arrow keys on my keyboard and scoot this over to the other side. I'm not going to make this super precise. I'm going to kind of eyeball it here from the front and see, okay, that's about same amount sticking out as on the other side. We'll call that even. Last piece I want to do is put 2 more going in this direction. So the easy way for me to do this is select this one, hold shift and select this one. Now I have both selected. I will duplicate both. And what I will do is rotate these 90 degrees around the work plane, as in around the booster itself. So I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to click on this double-sided arrow here. And I'm going to rotate it 90, release, and there we go. We've got 4 little fins going around the booster evenly, all the same height, and all on the center alignment of the booster. I'm happy with that. So what I want to do now is group these all again. Again, you can save your grouping for different stages of your design, and sometimes it's advantageous to do it at certain points rather than others. But for this tutorial, just to keep it simple, I'm going to go ahead and group these all together right now. So I highlight all of them with my little left mouse click to drag over, make sure they're all highlighted, and I come up here and I hit group. And you'll notice for a second it was red. That just means that it's processing, and the bigger your model gets, sometimes it'll stay red longer while it's processing on Tinkercad servers. But once it turns blue all the way around, that's how you know that it's fully grouped together. So you can drag it around and see that your rocket is all one piece. 2 more features I want to go over. One is using a cutting tool to cut out a portion of your build. I'm going to make like a little recessed window here. And to do that, I want it a little circular shape kind of up here towards the top of the tank. I'm gonna come over here and you see these 2 pieces that are kind of shaded out. These are set to be cut pieces. You can just drag these out here. See this little menu for the cylinder? It's actually the same menu as this full cylinder here. If I drag this full cylinder out, you can see same menu, 2 different attributes right now. So this one is highlighted as a whole. This one is highlighted as a solid. And the fun thing is you can do this with any of the shapes. You can make it a whole or a solid. And this is how you get into the more of the Boolean operations here, using parts to kind of section and dissect other parts. So what I want to do is first rotate this over 90 degrees, and I'm going to align these two together. So I click that, hold shift, click my rocket, click on align, and I want to center these up. Next piece, I want to shift this over here onto the rocket. I'm going to hold shift, click on this white square and scale this down because I want it to be a tinier window. Another cool trick is click on my part, hold down Control and press up on my keyboard, and I can incrementally raise this up into the position that I want. Again, use keys to push it in. And again, I'm using keys right now just to keep it more precise so that I'm not freehanding it and accidentally getting out of alignment. This is just an easy way for me to stay aligned and not overdo any of my movements to get it into position. I'm gonna say that looks pretty good right there. We're gonna go ahead and call it at that location. Again, centered on the center tube. And now what's cool is when I group these two parts together, it will actually subtract out that section that is intersecting with the parent tube. So I have that one selected, shift and select the rest of the rocket, and I come up here to group. Look at that. I've now cut out what would be a little window inside this body. Last piece, another really fun part about Tinkercad is being able to use text to personalize a lot of the stuff that you want to use. So for me, I'm gonna use that feature now to make a little USA logo, kind of like you would see on the Atlas V. So start with the letter U, and I'm going to change this to sans, and I'm going to hold shift and scale this down kind of tiny, and I'm going to duplicate this. So we have a U. Now we're going to make an S, and then I'll duplicate that S, and we'll make, and notice when I hit duplicate that time, it actually populated it down because it takes preceding movements off of a parent figure that you're duplicating, and it will duplicate that increment the same amount in the same direction below it. So another cool feature of duplicate after you do that first parent movement, and we'll make A. What I want to do, you'll see that now that I've scooted over this side, they're out of alignment. I'm going to come up here to align, make sure these are all centered, and I'm going to rotate these upwards. So click the arrows, hold shift, and come up 90 degrees, drag these up. I'm gonna freehand these over approximately to the rocket. And while I have them all selected, I'm going to group these together just so I don't lose alignment or anything silly while I'm trying to put these on the rocket. Group, I'm gonna hold shift and kind of scale these down just a tad bit. And I'm gonna get them close to the rocket. We'll offset them a little bit, and we will now shift, click the rocket, hit the align tool, center these up, got them centered, deselect everything, select back on USA, and I will move these into position wherever I see fit. So I'm gonna scroll in here. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna left arrow key over a little bit more. That looks pretty good. I don't want them sticking out too far. I will group all of these together. Okay, so as you can see, we have a finalized design here. It's a little rocket. I have everything grouped together, and we are officially done with the design for now. What's really cool is that a nice way to go about your designs is making incremental parts and then just duplicating them up. For example, now that I've made this rocket, say I wanted to make it into like a triple booster rocket or something silly like that. I'll just go over here, duplicate it, shift these over a little bit. Let's go like right there, and then say I want to duplicate it one more time. And then I can shift and scale up this center rocket to a height that allows me to have like these two little side boosters or something silly like that. Again, you can get really creative here, but that's how you can sort of incrementally design your way up into making fuller assemblies and fuller parts like cars or mechanisms or whatever, is utilize that ability to start small, make subsections. If you know they're repeated, then you can duplicate them up and turn them into a bigger part. This will be the last piece that I want to touch on here, is being able to export files for 3D printing. So I know a lot of people come here to this channel looking for help with 3D printing. The reason I recommend this so much is that if you're getting into 3D printing and you're not ready to jump into a bigger CAD platform, this is the way that you can go about starting to make models and then exporting them out. So to do that, we've got our grouped part here, and it's as simple as coming up here to export. You can export it as just a regular STL file. So you come here, click STL, It's going to populate in your download folder and it's a done deal. So simple as that, really, really easy to export. And then from there, you can take it to your 3D printing slicing software and upload it there and you're good to go. All right, friends, thanks for sticking with me for that tutorial. I hope you got something useful out of it that enables you to not only get a better understanding of just CAD modeling in general, but give you the steps to jump right into starting your own Tinkercad account and getting your own design started today. I think it's that easy. Just log in, sign up, and then just run through a couple examples of, play around with simple parts, do some of the tutorials that I will have linked in the description below. That way you can get a grasp for just making stuff kind of really easily and really stepping your way into getting familiar with CAD modeling in general. As always, comment below if there's something that I missed with the video that you feel like is super important. I can always do follow-on videos. So if you have more things that you'd like to know about, or just generally want to see another level of progression here with using Tinkercad, please let me know below. Outside of that, like the video, please subscribe to my channel and follow along for any other topics that I like to work through, whether it's 3D printing, engineering, design, you name it, things that kind of help other people create stuff. And I will continue to keep churning out content related to that. Thanks, everyone.